All right, good evening, everybody. We will now reconvene into open session. The time is now 7:08. So please rise for the pledges, joined by B.B. Owen Elementary students.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for the which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, don't leave. We want to recognize you guys and your parents. Thank you so much for being here. We have fifth graders, Trey Burton and Jada Jones. And would your parents please stand and be recognized? Got to take a picture. Welcome, everyone. The meetings of the board are open to the public but are not meetings of the public. The Lewisville ISD Board of Trustees meets monthly to receive reports from staff and take action on recommendations from the superintendent. The board receives the agenda and all supporting documentation 10 days in advance of these regular meetings, which allows us to ask and receive answers to many of our questions. In addition, the board also meets in regularly scheduled workshops and work sessions where staff discussions and presentations are given for many of the agenda items. This protocol means lengthy discussion for a litany of questions on every agenda item often is not necessary. And as a board, we should have appropriate knowledge and preparation for responses regarding the content of the meeting tonight. So consider action items discussed in closed session. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve all personnel recommendations as presented by administration.
Thank you. That's a motion by Ms. Hassett. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sells. All in favor? 7-0, motion carries. Okay, Amanda Brim, Chief Communications Officer, will share us this month's recognitions.
Lewisville ISD recently had many student athletes compete in the University Interscholastic League's 2018 State 6A cross-country meet at Old Settlers Park in Round Rock, Texas. Flower Mound High School's top runner, Alex Mayer, claimed the UIL State Championship title with a 14-minute, 34-second time, which is an average pace of 4 minutes and 40 seconds per mile over 3 miles. This is the best individual finish in the state and school record history. With a combined team score, the FMHS girls cross-country team brought home the state silver medal, and the boys team brought home the state bronze medal. FMHS Cross Country is led by Coach Andy Cook, Katie Dalek, and Michael Horstmeyer. Congratulations, Jaguars. Lewisville ISD is proud of you.
Howdy, I'm Andy Cook. And I just want to say, we have a great group of kids. We're so proud of them for getting second and third at the state meet. They want me to introduce everybody. We have Jonathan Flint, starting on the very far right. So wave your hand, Jonathan. Tommy Romano, Jarrett Kurt, Nathan Villon, Alex Mayer. Alex was our state champion this year. So Alex, give him a hand there. So. We have Jake Ricks. I'm trying to see who else. Colin Lau, Tasia Davis, Ali Buemi, Hannah McLaughlin, Ali Lida, Natalie Cook, Mia Hong, and Emmy Thomas. And I just want to say, not all these kids are really fast. They're also really great teammates. Just excellent kids and a pleasure to work with this year. And anyway, it's been a great season. Thank you.
And can we ask that parents of these runners, if they would please stand, let us acknowledge you.
Congratulations. Let's give them one more round of applause. Okay, now we're at hear requests to address the board. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card prior to the meeting. No presentations shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included in the agenda. We have 5 people that are wanting to speak tonight. So we will call up first Donna Rick.
Good evening. I'm Donna Rick. I've been a member of the College Street community for 45 years. My 4 children attended College Street Elementary, and 1 child now teaches at College Street as the music specialist. I have another child who just completed 5 years of serving on the LISD SHAC committee, the last 2 years as chairman. And I have another child teaching in the LISD who was instrumental in developing our outdoor trails program. I organized the Council of PTA shortly after moving to Lewisville and had previously served on the LISD Board of Trustees. You might say that as a family, we've been committed to serving the needs of our school district in multiple ways. I've always considered it a privilege to serve the LISD wherever I could serve the needs of the children, but according to the organizational chart of the LISD, I also have a responsibility and obligation as a community member to serve alongside the Board of Trustees in guiding the path of our school district. It's for the above reasons that I come to you tonight and ask you to seek a name other than Mill Street Elementary for our new College Street campus. The name Lone Star Elementary has been popular in the community, and I truly think that's a perfect name to represent the history of our founding days of Lewisville, and is fitting for the Western theme prevalent in Old Town. It also represents patriotism and is a theme the children would enjoy. Because the board's naming committee stated that it was important to them to offer a name with historic significance to Old Town, by stating no other name incorporated the history of the area as much as Mill Street, I offer a second alternative. The name Keeley Elementary is offered. It keeps alive the history of the origin of Mill Street and the surrounding area, with a name that will evoke in the children the importance of each person who serves their community and how their commitment and actions can affect future generations. History of Lewisville states that L.M. Keeley and his family are the reason we have Mill Street. He ran the grist mill that his father built on property that is a few blocks north of the new school campus. Obviously, the street was named after the road that led people to the mill. Let's use the name of the person, not the road. L.M. Keeley was the first mayor to be born in Lewisville. He is buried in Old Hall Cemetery. He was mayor during the centennial year of our founding. He was also the postmaster. He owned property in what is now Old Town Lewisville, and there is still to this day a subdivision called L.M. Keeley Subdivision. This subdivision either includes or touches the property of the new school campus. My neighbors and I plead with you not to name the school after the following businesses located near the campus: Mill Street Car Wash, Mill Street Motors, Mill Street Diner, Mill Street Tires. The name Mill Street takes away from the special identity that this beautiful new school should have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rusk. Next is Marissa Rick.
Good evening, LISD board members, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Marissa Rick, and I have been a music specialist in the district for over 25 years, serving both Central Elementary and College Street Elementary. I am also a former student of College Street. I love our school, but I'm also very excited about moving to a new facility next year. I appreciate all the time and energy the district is putting forth to provide a beautiful new campus for us. I would, however, like to express my strong feelings against naming our school Mill Street Elementary. I would like to assist the board in determining a name more fitting for our new state-of-the-art facility. I feel the name should be more significant and be a beacon in the area and not just simply blend in with the 4 businesses nearby that share the same name. That is what I want for my students as well, to be leaders. If you drive by the part of Mill Street where our school is being constructed, it seems to not be a very inspiring area. I ask you to be open to other ideas from our College Street community and Central Elementary community, as this new neighborhood school will affect the whole area. I hope for a name that would honor the history of the area and also be inspiring to our students. The LISD community has been invited to offer suggestions for the naming of the new Career Center, and our local community would like that same opportunity. I look forward to getting details on how we can make that happen. I know district leadership recognizes the importance of names, as the Boland Administrative Center has just recently been renamed, so I'm sure that our innovative district can provide a more fitting name for our school. I'm excited to have a beautiful new building, to connect with the central faculty and students, and to move forward with our next chapter. I feel confident that whatever name the board selects, I will be excited about it too, but please consider continuing the conversation and gathering input from the community stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rick. Okay, hopefully I don't mess with this name. Is it Aish Puri? Did I say that right, or did I?
Almost.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah, greetings. My name is Ashish Puri from Flower Mount and parent from LISD. I'm here to share about a Hindu festival, Festival of Lights, which is Diwali, with the larger community. Diwali is celebrated by Hindus all over the world, not just from India. Its original name is Deepavali, which simply means rose of lights. And on this festival, we decorate our house with colorful lights, lamps, which simply signifies the removal of darkness, of ignorance with a knowledge of light. Diwali is usually celebrated every year in month of October and November based on Hindu calendar. In fact, we celebrated Diwali last week, and it's a 5 days festival, one of the biggest festival we have. The message of Diwali is very simple. It's a celebration of victory of good over evil. And there are a lot of social, cultural, historical stories behind the celebration of this festival. On this day, how we celebrate is we get together as a family and we pray. We pray for well-being of everybody, which is a core belief of Hindus, which is simply means that entire world is one family. So simply Diwali means fun, festival, lot of yummy food, and of course firecrackers with permission from cities. And I took the liberty to put a small decorative lamp on each of your chair with a simple message. Hope you like it. And thank you so much for your time and support, and happy Diwali to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was excellent. They're actually very beautiful. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Next, we have Jonathan Holt.
Good evening, President Cox, Dr. Rogers, and esteemed members of the board. My name is Jonathan Holt. I'm a father of a student at College Street Elementary School. First off, I would like to thank all of y'all on the board for your support in building us such an incredible new school. I cannot tell you the excitement that we're feeling about going to this new school. The renderings and the drawings are amazing, and we're so excited about it. I can't imagine what the process is to build a school like that. There must be so many details and so many things considered, so many hours that y'all have spent and staff has spent developing those plans. College Street's the heart and soul of the Old Town neighborhood. It has many alumni for many years who go back a lot of legacy throughout the LISD history. Our school is continuing to prepare future leaders for Lewisville through our Leader in Me program and many other great programs that we have. I'm here tonight, though, to talk about the name Mill Street Elementary. I'm a little bit frustrated that with all of the emails we get from y'all asking about surveys, to please provide our input for this. Please give us a name for the new centers. Please talk to us and give us input. Serve on our boards. Vote for us on our bonds. That limited input was received from the College Street family and the College Street neighborhood about the name. So I went and looked to see how other schools in LISD are named. And I was kind of surprised to see that no other school in Lewisville ISD bears the name street, road, avenue, boulevard, or anything. Mill Street Elementary would be the only one in the district. You would like to hear our voices, and we would certainly like to share them with you. The College Street family is a very close, very tight-knit family, and this school will be the heart of the new neighborhood as it's beginning to grow again in the Old Town area. We're excited to have this gem of a school in that area. We would just ask y'all, as others have presented before you, to please include us, ask us. Let us come and work with y'all very closely to come up with a name that's befitting of such a legacy school within your district, something that our kids, 20 or 30 years from now, will tell their children, that's where I went to school. That's where I went to elementary school. I was there when this new school was built, like so many of the alumni do with College Street. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Thank you for letting me address the board.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Luis Juarez.
Hello, board. My name is Luis Cuevas, and I'm a longtime Lewisville Old Town resident. And I wanted just to speak briefly on the naming of Mill Street Elementary, or at least the proposal. Like I mentioned, I'm a longtime Old Town Lewisville resident. I attended College Street as well as Central, DeLay, and Lewisville High School. I'm a parent to two kiddos at College Street. I am a volunteer, I'm a mentor, and I am the treasurer of the PTA. Needless to say, I am pretty involved in our community, with our children, the staff. I want the best for my community. And so when I heard about the name Mill Street Elementary, of course we all knew it was just labeled that because, well, that was convenient. But then to actually hear that that was the suggested name, I thought it was a joke. And so did some of the members of our community and the parents. And even one of the kiddos that I mentor, he was like, no, that's a joke. I'm like, no, it's not. It really is. He's like, no, it's a joke. The name Mill Street Elementary just does not embrace what is happening at that campus. I feel that, with a name like Mill Street, I do understand that we're trying to capture the past, or at least that's the thinking behind it. But the reality is that I would rather look at the future. I would rather embrace the future. I'd rather embrace the culture of what's going on at this wonderful school. If you look at the history of College Street Elementary, and I'm talking in the last 5-6 years, and how the campus is going in the right direction, I would want to embrace that. I would want to carry that over to the new campus. And I feel that naming it Mill Street Elementary just doesn't do that. So I would just ask you to consider rethinking that name and maybe going with a different name. My suggestion would be Lone Star Elementary, something that embraces, again, the Leader in Me program, the leaders that we are creating there at the elementary school. Embrace that culture, embrace what's happening at College Trail Elementary. Again, I ask that we look at the future and not so much the past. There's some good things happening there, and I would ask you to consider that. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank all of our speakers tonight, and I will tell you that the board does not take this decision lightly, naming of the school, so it is very important to them decision, and the committee has worked very hard. So the committee actually is reconvening to meet to get community input. So if you do have some names and would like to submit them to the board, I encourage you to do that so the committee can see your requests are. So thank you. Okay, we will now be conducting a public hearing on the financial integrity rating system of Texas. Mr. Ball?
Thank you, Ms. Cox, board members, Dr. Rogers. We do have a PowerPoint presentation tonight on this. This is a required public hearing related to, as you indicated, the financial integrity rating system of Texas, which we refer to as the first rating. And so this is a report that provides the required disclosures related to that. And so we'll just jump right in. The first one is that this hearing be advertised. And so we have advertised this hearing. It was published on October 28 as required by the statute. And we are happy to report that we received the highest rating, the rating of A, superior. And this is the rating that the district has earned really since this program started about a little over 15 years ago. And then I won't go through each of these indicators, but this report is available and will be on our website. There are several indicators here, and the result of the indicators that are prescribed by the Texas Education Agency are all listed there. Along with the time, the date and time the agency assigned that result, and then the score that's been assigned. And there are a couple, I believe there are 3 pages of these, and then the concluding on the 3rd page with the actual numeric score, and it does indicate there that we did receive the superior rating. And then additional required disclosures are that the superintendent's contract be posted, and it is. There's the hyperlink there to the superintendent's contract, which is on the LISD website, and that's the URL to get to that. The second disclosure that's required is reimbursements to the superintendent and board members, and this because this report is for the 12 months ended August 31, 2017, there are some names on here that might differ a little bit from the 7 individuals who are elected at present on the board. And so it's any trustee who was on the board during the fiscal year ended August 31, 2017, along with the superintendent. And so sometimes there will be more names there than just the 7 on the board. So those are the disclosures of the reimbursements to those individuals. The third disclosure has to do with outside compensation and fees received by the superintendent, and Dr. Rogers has reported none in that category, and that's what the disclosure indicates. And this disclosure is about gifts received by executive officers and board members. Those are all reported as none there, as you would see. And then the 5th disclosure has to do with business transactions between the school district and board members. Those also, I'm happy to report, are none. And then other disclosures, we're happy to report that the district has received 2 particular awards in regard to its financial reporting. The Government Financial Officers Association's Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The district has received that award for this fiscal year ended 8/31/2017. We anticipate we will produce the financial report that will generate that same report for the 8/31/2018 fiscal year. The same can be said of the Association of School Business Officials International Award for Financial Reporting. Both of those reports or awards we've received for about 18 consecutive years. And then a new requirement this year is that we present the previous year's rating, and so the next 2 or 3 slides are just a representation of last year's report that was presented in a similar public hearing last year, and it's got the indicators there that were in effect for that particular year, along with the date and time the agency assigned the scoring and the score that was assigned. And we also received the A Superior rating last year as well. So that concludes the required report on the first hearing. And at this time, Ms. Cox, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. This is a public hearing on the financial integrity rating system of Texas. Is now open. If there's persons present who would like to speak on this topic, please come forward at this time. Don't all come up at once. Okay, if there's no additional speakers, I declare the public hearing now closed. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, we'll move to information items. Language arts update, Dr. Rapp.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Rogers, I'm going to ask that Ms. Adrienne Gall make her way to the podium, and she's going to introduce the team that's going to share with you the great work that's happening in language arts to support the revision of the TEKS. We're very proud of this team and the great work that they're doing in the district, and I'm pleased for you to get to hear from them tonight.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much to the board members, President Cox and Dr. Rogers, for having us here to talk about the topic of language arts. We are very, very fortunate to have 3 amazing administrators serving for language arts in elementary and secondary. All that they do to serve our teachers in our schools is amazing work, and we want to share that with you tonight. So I'd like to introduce you to Tamberly Wheeler, who serves as our K-2 language arts administrator. Kobe Stringer serves 3 through 5 language arts administrator, and Sean Hood serves all secondary language arts. So they'll be sharing information with you tonight. If you have questions, you can ask at the end. Thank you.
Good evening. We're excited to be with you to share an update on language arts in LISD. While literacy is a complex content to teach, we feel confident about our vision for developing strong capacity in our students in LISD. So like this quote says, our goal is about students putting those literacy skills to work in their own lives. So tonight we'd like to revisit our vision for literacy and how we support that vision. We'd also like to update you on how the revised TEKS will help us continue our vision. In LISD, we do believe in a balanced literacy approach, which gives equal attention to both reading and writing. Instruction in one area supports learning in the other. We've been teaching and using this balanced approach for some time now. We've always believed in the interconnected nature of teaching, reading, and writing. While we do have a few new standards, it won't be overwhelming for our teachers because our structure for learning has been set up this way all along. We communicate this balance through instructional frameworks for both elementary and secondary. In a balanced approach, we include modeling the targeted skill or behavior. We believe in intentional skill instruction. It's important to assess and evaluate learning all along the way. Classrooms are filled with varied text, and we engage students in authentic literacy activities daily.
There we go. We'd like to share with you how we currently support the vision. So we offer support in a variety of ways. At both the elementary and the secondary levels, we provide instructional frameworks that outline best practices when it comes to literacy instruction, and also provide examples of best practices with reference to that. Another avenue of support comes in the form of professional learning. So throughout the summer and during the school year, we offer face-to-face trainings. We offer training through online format and also through blended instruction, which is a hybrid of both online and face-to-face sessions. We support campuses through professional learning communities, and the content learning facilitators also provide what we like to call job-embedded support, where they're planning alongside with a classroom teacher, modeling in a teacher's classroom, or in many cases, co-teaching right alongside with a teacher in his or her classroom. Another way that we offer support is through our curriculum. It's created through a balanced approach. And in our curriculum, we offer a background on the standards or the texts for teachers, options for assessment, and also a menu of resources from which teachers may choose as they plan daily lessons. Now, our curriculum is organized and written in 3 main stages, and this is an example of a 6th grade language arts unit. Okay? So the first stage of instruction is what we like to call desired results. The desired results stage is where teachers look to see the standards that are to be addressed in a unit and to see what are the big learning takeaways that a student should have at the conclusion of the unit. This is where all planning begins, looking first at what is the end result the kids should come away with. Stage 2 is where we house the assessment options. So after a teacher starts with the desired results, he or she moves to this stage of planning and looks at the options for assessment and how he or she is going to measure student learning. So we start first with looking at the standards and the end result, then think about what are the options, how are we going to measure this learning, before we move to stage 3, which is where we have curated a series of resources and lesson materials from which teachers would choose as they plan their daily instruction, outlining the desired results from the first stage of instruction.
So as we're looking ahead to our new standards, which will begin for K through 8 in the fall and then 9 through 12 the next year, I think it's really important to remember what Tamberly mentioned is that this has been our approach for several years. And so this transition to our new standards is not going to be a dramatic transition for language arts. So some highlights. We are broken into 7 strands, and these represent really key literacy principles for us. So foundational skills, those are areas of like oral language literacy, beginning reading and writing in K through 5, vocabulary development, fluency, self-sustained reading is now included in the standards. In strain 2, those are our comprehension skills that move us in elementary from just understanding and decoding towards getting us to then understanding so we can communicate as we get into secondary. And these are full of a lot of strategies. We talk a lot now in our new standards about increasingly complex texts, and so how we help students move along wherever they start. They're moving forward in increasingly complex texts while using similar strategies. Strain 3 is response skills. That's how we respond to both texts and ideas and others around us. Strain 4 deals with multiple genres. This is where we really dig into literary elements and kind of these constant characteristics of text, and then start breaking into the separate genres, things specific to poetry and drama and fiction and what is now just informational text, which is kind of the catch-all for everything nonfiction. Strand 5 gets us to author's purpose and craft. This is how a message is put together. So it's all of the fun little figurative elements included, as well as structural. Strand 6 then becomes composition. This is about writing process and about different types, different genres of writing. And then strand 7 is inquiry and research. And this is where not only do those traditional research process and research how to find information, but also ties back to how we deal with things that we don't know, the plan we create. We create questions, we do these things. The other important thing to remember about our new standards is before we had been kind of isolated and everything was living in a separate thing where reading kind of was over here and writing was over here in our standards. Right? With our new update, we're really interconnected. where what we learn through reading, say, about informational text and how it's organized and what we look for as a reader is then expected as a writer. That's what we're doing with informational text as well. And so the important thing to remember is all 7 of these strands kind of work like a rope being tied and created, where they all interrelate with each other. So you never have any just one aspect of literacy at a time. As I mentioned, the interconnected nature of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, right? Listening and speaking and reading and writing used to be very separate in our standards, and now through each of those strands, all of those are overlaid together. We're also really thinking about those relationships and connections must be really explicit. And so as we're working with our teachers, really reinforcing all of those balanced approaches where we do reading and writing together, that they don't exist separately. The role of text complexity has to be very central and explicit. That's not only across grade levels, K through 12, but even from beginning of year to end of year, and how that's different and varies for student to student. And so our new standards are going to call us to be really responsive to the kids sitting in front of us. And then one thing that's really beneficial of our new standards is how much more aligned horizontally across a grade level. How we see what we work on in reading is also what we want to work on in writing, but also a better vertical alignment. We see some standards like the comprehension strand, there is not a lot of difference between 2nd grade through 12th grade, but what changes are the texts that we're reading and the complexity and how we use those similar skills. So we develop that literacy practice of understanding and being reciprocal with our strategies, and really trying to create with our students these tools that we can pull out of a toolbox when we get stuck. As we're moving ahead, we are in a new instructional materials selection for K through 8, and we will be back in the spring with our recommendations, and our teacher committees we've already begun that process, and very excited to see what comes of that. Like I said earlier, the K through 8 TEKS will start this fall, and then high school will be next year. So I get 2 fun years of this. We will have a lot of training for staff, both on our new instructional materials, our new standards, and really that training is going to be reinforcing the things we've already been talking about in our district. And one big thing for secondary is kind of what are some of those monitoring tools we're going to have in place. And then we're starting to see some of those things through instructional materials, and we're really excited to dig in further and see what we can find there as support for this. Literacy is a very complex thing, and it's not as linear as something like math, where you start at this point and go to the end. And I think one thing that's really great about our new standards is it recognizes that it is reciprocal and kind of continues to cycle through a process. And so while there are some changes, and there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with our new standards, the bulk of it is about our balanced approach and being responsive to our kids, and really getting them to see how all of these literacy tools that they're learning in one area apply to the other. So how it works when we're listening, we can also use when we're speaking and crafting messages. When we're learning how to write a structure, we can look for that as readers. And so as we move forward, we're excited to get to continue the approach we've had, and look forward to new opportunities and challenges that the new standards will present.
I just want to reiterate, as they've closed out this presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions, this team really has turned the language arts curriculum into something that is very robust in the assessment ideas that are in there, and just how they're able to dig in with the teacher curriculum writing teams and the teachers through the learning facilitators. We're very thankful for y'all's support for those roles, to be out there and working with the teachers. There's no doubt that language and literacy, it takes a lifetime to develop. And so one of the things we appreciate from you all, as well as the support in saying that STAR is not really the ultimate measure of language and literacy and the robust skills that you need to be ready for college and career. And this team does a great job of supporting that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rabin. Thank you for a great presentation and very thorough and detailed. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Prosnick?
First, great presentation. I will give kudos to the district because we write our own curriculum. I don't think that we found many gaps with the new TEKS, and that's, pat yourselves on the back for that. I will tell you, I was in a language class at DeLay Middle School this week when I was touring it, and the teacher described, he was giving a lesson, and he said it's like a spider's web, and that every string connects to every other. And I thought that, especially with the strands and how you described it, that's what we're doing, and with the SSR. My question is going to be more about those assessments, and especially when we're looking at them at this level. What do you alluded to those assessments? What exactly does that look like?
All right, well, I'll speak for secondary. One of the things in our Understanding by Design framework that it calls for are these performance tasks. And I've also been very fortunate to be a part of the work that TASA is doing with performance assessments and the community-based accountability. And so what we've done in secondary is really try to take that charge on and really start to think about, okay, so we talk about informational text and how it's organized, and we write these arguments and we do these things, but when does that really happen in the real world? And so we're trying to develop our big assessment for a unit based on, well, what might this look like, not in an ELA classroom, but when they're in the real world and how that looks. And so we've started our performance assessments as year one, so we're getting the hang of it. But really what we're trying to do is get kids to transfer that knowledge and to see that. Along the way, we've provided lots of other evidence, as you can see in there, of understanding that an assessment isn't a one-time thing. So as kids are doing SSR, which you mentioned, we want to be talking with them and having conferences and using that as the basis of, well, where are we now as a reader with this student, and what is our next step, and what are conversations, and really trying to find the kid where they are, and recognize that assessment in ELA is a constant, always happening thing. It's in the discussions we're having informally. It's in crafting really focused, close reading passages with a multiple choice questions or a short answer. And so it's really varied, but the whole goal is just getting us to see that these literacy skills don't live just in an ELA classroom. They live everywhere around us, and finding those opportunities to help kids make those connections.
Ms. Hassett.
I have a question that you might not be able to answer, and that's okay. I might bug you later if you can't answer it right now. So for the new interconnected reading and writing, how does that look if we want to encourage our legislature to do away with the writing EOCs? So now if they're even more interconnected, the commissioner has said that the federal level said that we have to test writing because they're a TEK. If they're no longer more pulled out and separate so that we can try to create a waiver at the federal level, does this mean that the passage of a bill that removes the writing EOC is going to be even more difficult? Do you have any idea now, or I can bug you later to find out?
I'm looking at Dr. Fitzhugh too, and as her face with the commissioner saying that because writing's a TEK, it has to be tested that way. But I would say, even though the new TEKs connect them more, the writing assessment, the way it's done, has always been inappropriate and developmentally inappropriate, and even more so now because your writing should be connected to your reading, and there's no way in a standardized format that you're going to be able to connect that writing test to something that a student is reading. And it's very rare that in the writing process, now this is where I'm going to turn to the experts here, but you very rarely take a writing process from start to finish in a testing environment like that. Normally, you have multiple drafts, you have revision, so there's no doubt that to try to think that that's how writing works in the real world is, maybe I'm being too blunt, but y'all can come up to the microphone and say yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I might
very challenging.
Might pick your brain later as we come into the session as to how to address this issue at the state level on that. My second question, are there still speaking TEKs? Because I know we do have a level of waiver from the feds that we don't have to test speaking TEKs. So they are interconnected within.
Yes, and one thing we see with Strand 1, which Sean mentioned previously, the foundational skills, that include listening, speaking, reading, and writing also have an inclusion of something called a structured conversation. So encouraging more of that conversation in class where students are owning a lot of the speaking and thinking and talking that's happening in the classroom, not so much the teacher, where the teacher is facilitating some structured conversations with the kids. So it's a really good thing that we're seeing in the standards.
No, I like the idea of the TEAK.
Yeah.
It's just, if it's a TEAK, it has to be tested. And so I'm going to once again pick your brains on what that truly means as we're coming up into the next legislative session on how to make sure that we're not over-testing on things. Thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, so a couple of things, and I think Ms. Hassett that's a good question. I hope that we all have a chance to interact on that. I think that we want to pick our battles on this, right? And we've chosen that our battleground with the legislature this year on TEAKs is more substance, less TEAKs, right? Deeper rather than wider. And I'm not sure that we shouldn't test writing. And I know that you had a quote early on in the presentation where it kind of inferred this disconnectedness. But I think about skills that are required to be successful. And a real brief story. Today I was looking through some things and I found a second grade report card. Now, I grew up in the country, right? And a couple things. Did have a comment about maybe talking too much. One was reading skills, and these were measures of N, needs improvement, S, those types of things. And so the kind of pedagogical assessment was, or the pedagogy, I guess, teacher used at that time was have him read out loud more. I don't remember that happening, but that was one of the things. And so I know we've gotten to a deeper level of research than we'd had 40 plus years ago. And so I don't want us to kind of move away from suggesting that testing yet without having a collaborative discussion amongst us as a board and staff as it relates to recommendations. A couple things. One is I'm going to send a note later to Dr. Rapp on learning facilitators to understand the use of that a little more. I know what they do, but it's kind of conjured up some questions for me. I hope that we get a copy of the presentation. I'd like to ask this, if we could, Adrian, maybe the elements that you had, the elements, I think there were 7 or what, that we get the strands, that we get some of those things that you were talking about. You gave in the first strand a list of 6 or 7 things, and I think that would just be helpful for us to all be on the same page. A few years ago, Dr. Rapp and Mrs. Gall remember this, there were a few of us that were real hawks on Common Core state standards. And so we've not had to talk about that much, but something that you said jumped out at me. And it was the informational text. So at the time, when this was hot, even though we had pushed back on it at a state level, informational text, the inclusion of more informational text in ELA by the Department of Education and David Coleman was considered a bit of an intrusion on ELA. Now, I would say, as a professional, I read more informational text than I do, the latest book I'm reading, Lincoln's Last Trial, right? So I see the value in it, assuming that we have some way to measure what a student is doing with that informational text. I mean, information is not, reading Google News or something, right? I assume it's, to teach them to read trade journals or, different manuals or those types of things. So am I going in the right direction there?
Yeah, so I think, Sean, ultimately, if I understand the question correctly, it's different type of genres that you're talking about ensuring that students know so that they understand how to read poetry. And at one time it was called expository text, which was really understanding the genre of technical manuals, technical writing, things of that nature. So fiction, nonfiction, those are just the different genres that kids have to interact with when they're reading in the language arts classroom.
Yeah, it's one piece of it, and recognizing how those characteristics, it's trying to train readers how to use the genre to help them, what they know about a genre to help understand. And so informational kind of has now become this huge net of what used to just be nonfiction in general. And so that phrasing captures, those manuals, but it also captures some of our biographies and memoirs and things like that, where we're trying to help kids see that texts come in lots of shapes.
Okay, so informational text is not just kind of what I was thinking of it as it relates to those other standards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so great. And then maybe I'm going to kind of pivot from the perspective of Classical Academy, right? So you talked about the things as it relates to the standards and the changes, and then we're developing our curriculum, and we're going to look at the instructional materials and go through that whole process. I would like to understand more, and another venue could be maybe best. Again, back to my concern of the definition of classical education, right? And how we're approaching meeting the standards, and unfortunately, having to have the assessments at the state level, how we're doing that is different than the other options that are available to parents. Right, so a reinforcement of the things that we're doing, whether it's the instructional materials, the pedagogy, whatever, as it relates to meeting those TEKS, because there are other public options that are available that don't use the same approach that we do. I'd like to understand how we measure what we're doing, how the results are better in our view. Does that make sense? You know where I'm going with that? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Miller, does anyone have any other questions? Thank you again. That was a very great presentation. Appreciate it. Okay, Dr. Coburn, PD Place School-Based Clinic at Central update.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mrs. Cox. Members of the board, Dr. Rogers. Very pleased to have Melanie Vincelette, our Director of Health Services, along with some of our friends from PD Place that are here to discuss the clinic at Central Elementary School.
Good evening. This is Larry and I's third time to present about the PD Place Clinic at Central, and tonight we brought a celebrity guest just to mix it up a little bit. We have Jamie Haskew here. She's one of the nurse practitioners at PD Place. She's been with them for 14 years, and she is one of the primary nurse practitioners that works at the Central Clinic. So we're really glad to have her. She's going to add some authenticity to my quickly spoken words. As you know, do you mind? I'll do it. You know I hate this. Okay, so how does the PD Place Clinic work? First off, this is our third year. We're celebrating our third-year anniversary in February, and we're real pleased that it continues to be something that meets the needs of the students for that same-day service and getting in quickly to see a practitioner. It's direct referrals only. The nurses are the ones that make the appointments. Parents don't, because we need to have appointments open so we can get in and get out, and that works very well for us. Next one. It's open 14 hours a week, spread over a 3-day period, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and it's served by the nurse practitioner, the medical assistant, and a receptionist who the district does fund. So in January through September, we had 493 visits. Most of them are related to the typical things that people take their kids to see doctors for: the fever, the viral infection, respiratories, and the ear infections. And, all of us want to take our kid to get seen and get started on those antibiotics so they don't miss much school. The direct referrals came from pretty much 12 of our campuses, and they pretty much are all out of the LHS feeder pattern. We had some from Hebron. We do market across the district, but proximity is a little bit of an issue, and some of the needs aren't as much in the Flower Mound, Highland Village area. Our goals continue to be to expand the preventative services, expand our hours. We're working hard on that, and Larry's got a few things to add as I close out here. Thank you.
So, first of all, my thanks, PD Place's thanks, to the board, to the school. Ms. Devers was here, still is. We believe that what we do is truly in partnership, not only with the district at an administrative level, but certainly at the campus level, and even for everything that PD Place does at the community level, because it's the community who provides the support that allows us to have the staff and exercise our strategy throughout the district. So many, many thanks. A friend of mine said about something totally unrelated to PD Place or LISD, but I think it's very true. As Melanie said, this is our third year. So when something happens the first year and it's good, you kind of wave and say, yay, thank you. When something happens the second year, oh, this is a thing. And when something is happening the third year, we have a trend. And we have a trend. Because what's happening at Central is, with the PD Place Clinic, is really indicative of everything that PD Place strives to do in terms of making sure that healthcare is a reality for every kid. Sometimes the process works great through those direct referrals. Sometimes we find things out that we need to do better informing of, training for, like how do we promote those referrals throughout the district? What information do other school nurses need to have? And Melanie and I have begun to talk about how we continue to escalate communication into the spring and then move forward into the next school year. Thirdly, as Melanie indicated, one of the goals that we have had for really since the beginning that we will implement in early 2019 is that the school clinic at Central really will become another hub for full preventive care within the clinic. We can see patients of all ages there. The issue that we've had is administration of vaccines, and we will be purchasing the equipment to be able to do that as we finish out this year and getting all the certifications from Denton County so that we can actually store vaccine on site and be able to do that along with preventive care visits at the clinic. A couple of things that we've talked about before that I just want to reiterate. The clinic certainly prioritizes its scheduling based on referrals for kids who are both in and attend Central Elementary, but any other children within the district. Those direct referrals, in fact, the only way that you can actually contact the school clinic at the school clinic is by being an LISD staff person. That number is not published. It's not available to anybody else. It's not within the community. School nurses have exclusive access to that. But PD Place also schedules our other patients to be able to utilize that clinic, and we think that's a great thing. One, because most of those students are LISD students to begin with, and two, it also provides information to those families that what we're doing is really system-wide. It integrates our opportunity to provide health care in an exam room and really influence what ultimately happens in the classroom. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Janie Haskew, who, as Melanie said, has been with PD Place for 14 years, is a stellar nurse practitioner, a teacher in her own right of nurse practitioners and nursing professionals, and who really just has great love of the kids that we get to see.
Proudest of the last one. I do love our kids. So I just wanted to add a little depth, a little flavor to what they're talking about. I see the kids that I see there are kids, for the most part, that are sent by the school nurses, are from families that have many barriers to accessing health care, and they trust their school nurses. And that's why they come see us. And so we absolutely could not do this without them. One example, we have, just in giving vagaries without, violating HIPAA or anything like that. But for example, we have a kid at Central that the school nurse referred. This child is with her grandparents. And between, my help, the school nurse, the community and schools person at Central, and the counselor, we were able to help this grandparent really apply for Medicaid, get dental health, get preventative health, get vaccines, get rid of head lice, thank you very much, and anything else that this little one needed. And we did it right there at her school, and it was just so convenient and so safe for that family. And so I was real proud of how that worked out, and that's just one example of how it all works out. So thank you guys so much for your support. We just, again, love our kids at LISD, obviously, and we could not do this without you.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Tinish?
Thank you so much for this presentation. I really appreciate it. I was just curious when you said the number, I think it was 483 through September. What does the summer look like for PD Place?
So the summer in general for PD Place is our flow decreases because we're primarily serving, the kids that we're seeing are primarily coming in for well preventive care visits, and those visits take longer. We've made the decision this summer and the summer before to not be at the Central Clinic in the summertime, even though there is summer school going on, because ultimately the goal is being able to see more children, and we can do that far more productively by just funneling everybody to the Old Orchard Clinic. So the central clinic has not been open in the summer. It could, and it just depends on our volume and our staffing that will help determine that. As we move forward and we have the opportunity to provide vaccine at the clinic, it actually opens up another set of doors and changes the conversation around what is truly productive, and do we have enough children that it makes sense to open the clinic during the summer months. So in terms of the central clinic flow, there hasn't been anything in the summertime because we have generally been only open during the regular academic year. At PD Place, our summers are very busy, and we continued the general trend of serving about 10% more children, 10% more visits in 2018 than we did in 2017.
Thank you. And you said you wanted to go, your goal was 16 hours, increased by 2. How many more students do you think that would impact?
Generally speaking, we measure a sick visit, a visit for a child who's coming in for acute sick care in 15-minute increments, so 8.
And one more question. When you said that 2 high schools in the LA, and I'm assuming that was Hebron and LHS, does that also include Harmon and Kilo sending students?
Yes, it does. Harmon in particular has sent quite a few. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions.
Ms. Sells?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for this clinic, and just knowing students that have been personally impacted has just been the difference between feeling bad at school, waiting till that night, then maybe the next morning when the parent realizes, and realizing that need, and getting those kids back in the class for instruction. Because even if they had to go on antibiotic, 24 hours later they can be back in the classroom, versus maybe 24 hours before the parent even realizes that they're sick and can get care somewhere else. So kudos to you all, and I do appreciate that. I was wondering, how many students have you not seen? Any? Or?
Meaning have we
for
turned
referrals,
anybody away?
Yes. Have you had to turn any away because of the hours, or are you able to refer them to the other location? I mean, is that the mindset?
Yeah, well,
I'm just making sure that nobody's left behind.
So thank you for the second half of the question. I can honestly say that there is no one who requests an appointment at a PD Place facility that doesn't get an appointment at a PD Place facility. Because the central clinic is only open those 12 to 14 hours a week, they may not be able to get the appointment immediately at central, but our goal is to see any child who requests a visit for an acute care sick visit, to be able to see them the same day or the next day, and we're successful with that about 85 to 90% of the time.
Okay, and so there is a follow-up by the school nurse to make sure, or, I mean, if you're judging that, if you've got a stat on that, then you've probably done some.
I'm only familiar with one case that couldn't get in that same day, and I called Larry, and he worked on it to get it seen the same day. So it was just kind of a miscommunication that actually happened. That's the only one I'm familiar with. My nurses know to call me if they can't get them in. So that's, I don't know about your stats, but that's what my stats showed, is that they all got in.
Okay.
But I did have to place a call. And I just want to say the collaboration that we have, the availability to call Larry, to call the nurse practitioners. One of the wonderful things that I've seen grow and just makes me tear up is the relationship between their medical professionals and my medical professionals, because partnerships are growing. And to Larry's point about as you get to the third year, it's just really wonderful that they trust each other and how much they take care as a unit of these families. So it's very meaningful.
And then shameless plug, because you brought it up, partnerships with the community. I did not realize that if you go to the PD Place website that there is things to volunteer for the PD Place. And my daughter found that site. And we're not medical professionals, but there are numerous things that you can do from a community partner standpoint to aid you in completing your mission. And so for her, she made Halloween gift bags and brought over one afternoon. And so I just wanted to, that was just a plug for y'all. So if you want to be involved in PD Place but you're not medical, there's room for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, thank you. I think, when you look at what we're doing, this is a great opportunity to us to lead in an even bigger way. And I'm going to go a little bit, Larry, to how do we grow, right? And to your 3-year comment, we've got, and because we have multiple dynamics in our community relative to politics and different view on services, right? Nobody would ever, regardless of political position or religious beliefs or lack thereof, would disagree that communities and schools or food programs should be in our schools, right? Everybody supports that. And I think this is one where when we see free medical services, or some could look at that and go, what's the school district doing? All the school district is doing is providing access to health care here. And to quote Dr. Rapp, like I usually do, if the kids are hungry, tired, sick, scared, or don't come to school, we can't educate them. Now, the good news is in this area of education, we're team players because they can go to a charter school, a private school, and still, if they have a need, they could come to Central to get some medical treatment, right? So the question is then to the your 3-year point, I think this is a trend. And like is generally the case with our board, we look at how, if we're doing something well, how do we expand that? So maybe if you could just briefly tell us a little bit about how do you get funded, right? We're not funding you necessarily, although I know we partner with you on different programs, with people and resources. But how do you get funded, and what would be some barriers or limitations to you expanding to other schools?
Right, so let me answer that question very, very briefly. About 55% of PD Places funding comes from reimbursements from Medicaid and CHIP. We value those dollars. We also argue about those dollars because on the one hand, they're very small. On the other hand, they allow us to do half our work, and we can leverage those dollars to fundraise in the rest of the community and say that everything the community raises or participates with PD Places going directly to providing health care. Having said that, if you take that other half, about 20% of that comes from private foundational philanthropy. Not an individual gift here and there, but a grant that we actually go out and seek. If you use that as the core of what's needed to expand what we're doing within LISD to another school or other schools, my dream is to do the following. My dream is to be able to fully support a full-time nurse practitioner and a full-time medical assistant. The cost of that is about $150,000. Their hours would then be divided up, whether it's 1 clinic or 4, to be able to provide the same services that we're providing at Central. Within that framework, let's say that there was another school. Let's say that there was another middle school, for example, where we could house a satellite clinic just like we're doing at Central. I would love to be able to have the resources to devote them to not necessarily serving in a elementary school environment, to be able to serve in a middle school, high school environment where our focus there is adolescence, because it creates a totally different kind of healthcare need. And it creates a different focus that we believe at PD Place is important and that we think the district also believes is important in terms of serving a full district of children. Janie and I have talked about this a little bit over the last few weeks. I wanted to say this earlier. I had a feeling that you were going to ask the question. That's my dream in terms of where do we strategically go with this and what are the costs involved to be able to make it happen.
Any other questions? Was it Janie or Jamie?
Janie.
Janie, I'm sorry, but I just want to say thank you. I mean, Larry, you have the full board support, and we love this program, obviously, by the comments that have made. But the comment you made, I just want to commend you for that. The fact that not only is it a caring about our kids and the well-being, but you went above and beyond to connect services and help them above and beyond the community. And that's what I think I appreciate the most, is that you're providing more than just the well-being of kids. So thank you very much. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Coburn, demographer update on the third quarter 2018.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Cox. Members of the board, Dr. Rogers, I'm going to again pass the baton over to someone else who's more qualified than me. Our friend Rocky Gardner is here from Templeton to provide the third quarter update.
Good evening, Board. It's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Rogers, President Cox. This is our third quarter report. So this is data that was collected through the end of September of this year, which really coincides really well with our enrollment projections, or the beginning to look at projections, because the school year snapshot is in October. You know, see if I get this right. Economic conditions in Dallas-Fort Worth are still very strong. We've added about 65,000 new jobs in a trailing 12 months. Now, just a quarter ago, that number was 95,000, so there has been a little bit of a slowdown, but you can see that we're growing still at almost twice the pace of the U.S. Government or the national rate. 35,000 homes that have been started in the last 12 months, and the unemployment rate remains below 4%, which is, when 5% is full employment. So a strong unemployment rate as well. In Lewisville ISD, we jumped up to 1,362 starts, which was a big jump. You'll see on the next page, with 1,067 closings. So keep in mind that chart is ranked by closings. You see that you're number 9 in closings, number 5 in starts. There's over 1,700 vacant developed lots. Those are lots to be built on during this next year, and about 4,000, just over 4,000 future lots. And again, our team's adjusted some of that for some of the neighbors that have an over 55 designation. We've pulled those out of there. This next slide, I think, is interesting in that you'll see that the third quarter starts were 483. We believe that might be the most starts in any quarter in Lewisville's in the last 10 years in Lewisville ISD. Strong starts. Your closings are trailing behind with about 327 closings. We think that they're on pace to surpass the 2017 totals. We're going to close a little over 1,100 homes, so that pace is a little bit behind, but there was a little bit of a delay in delivery. So closings kind of held off a little bit this year, and now starts seems to be being made up now by builders. And just to kind of see how that looks, you can see that the 2018-19 closing total there dropped down to just over 1,000, and then you see that we're forecasting 1,300 homes by the fall of 2019. That's because of this big start rate that we're seeing right now that's kind of picking up that pace. And we're projected to close 750 to 400 to 1,400 homes a year for the next 5 years. I think you'll probably average right in that 1,200 to 1,000 homes each quarter. We're just seeing the challenge we're seeing is we're not seeing as many students in these new homes. I did take some time today to kind of just look at the yields I looked at all the homes that were built, that had a year built from 2015 to 2017, and that yield was just over 0.3, a very low yield. Because when I went back and looked at your homes that were built from 2010 and before, that's yielding right now about 0.5. So these new homes just aren't yielding as many right now. And that's kind of, as you recall from last year, that's beginning to challenge us a little bit on projections. New home closings, the top 10 developments here, Castle Hill Southwest closed 53 homes last quarter. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. I turned 2. My bad. Castle Hill South Point closed 66 homes. What I want to point out on this page is you can see that 7 of the 10 developments in the top 10 are going to run out of lots this year, which means now that some of the new construction is transferring to other developments. And that's where we talk about the kind of the pace of the vacant developed lots, the delivery of lots, and different kind of product. So if we look on the next page, this vacant developed lots, this tells you where your next round of growth is going to come from. These are lot deliveries, vacant developed lots, Castle Hill Southwest, Lakewood Hills. You can see that we got Ladera in there, which is an age-restricted community. We do not use that for forecasting purposes, of course. I think they're breaking a rule if they do that. But what we are seeing, there's about 146 annual closings and 932 vacant developed lots in these 10 developments. We think those are going to probably pick up a little bit because they're going to have to make up for some of those previous page lots where they're running out in some of those developments. For future lots, again, these top 10 have 2,600 future lots. Remember, the overall total was a little over 4,000. So 50% of your future activity is going to be in these 10 developments. You can see that most of it still remains on the east side of the district. And some of them, you can see the ones that have vacant developed lots, those are the ones where you're going to see housing first. This last chart here, this just kind of shows the distribution by attendance zones. It just kind of summarizes some of the information that I was showing there before. Quarter starts, though, in Kamey with 55 quarter starts there. That's a big number because Kamey hadn't been starting that many. Annually, they'd started just 75, 76 last year. So that's a big jump there at Kamey on that page. And this is just the distribution. This next slide here is that there's over 1,700 lots, like I said, available to build on. So basically those green polygons that you see on there, that's where all your activity is right now. The yellow is where your future activity is going to be. And then when you see a red outline, and I don't know if we maybe got too many polygons and lines on there or not, but the red outlines are where they're actually moving dirt. So that means they're going to be turning some of that future activity into vacant lots. And there's about 1,700 of those being worked on right now, which just means builders are just staying on trend. From a multifamily perspective, we've got roughly 3,600 multifamily units that are under construction right now in Lewisville ISD, with and about 5,100 units that are still on the books to be built. So there's still going to be strong multifamily development in Lewisville, and that's going to continue to kind of infill. And we've seen a bit of a decline in multifamily yields as well. We talked a little bit about that last year. We saw it's a very mobile population. And so you can see it, they kind of chase rent from time to time, a lot of that population. This next slide is Lakewood Hills. Lakewood Hills is about to get going here with the East Phase 1 with 52 lots. It's kind of sitting there. That red line is the elementary boundary there. It looks kind of funny. So you can see that where they're going to start building first is where you're going to maybe have some, cleanup to do eventually. You can see that it appears as if the elementary boundary runs right straight through that, or right down the side of those 52 lots. And so we think that they'll have homes starting there by 2018, but by the middle or the end of 2018, since this is 2018. Villas at Southgate, if you've driven down by there, you've seen that activity and that tiered activity there. That Phase 1's got the first homes under construction. Phase 3's going to have some stuff starting here very soon, and then Phase 2 will get going in January. So we don't really know when things will go south of Grapevine Highway, or really if residential will ever kind of go south of there. That's kind of still a question mark. Castle Hills. Now this is a busy slide. You guys can take a few minutes to study that. The bottom line right now is there's 51 homes under construction in this Castle Hills area. They've been doing about 160 homes a year, so there's still some strong growth there. There's over 600 homes that are still going to get built in the Castle Hills area. A good part of it is some villas or some more dense product, which is another kind of indication of lower yields when you start seeing that product. And then we've got over 4,000 multifamily that are also going to be built in this area. So it's getting very dense there in Castle Hills. This I'm not going to stay long on this. This basically just summarized the data from the previous page. If you didn't get enough to read in the first page, we just added one more page in there for you. Multifamily yields. The bigger the dot, the red dots, the more students that you'll find at that apartment complex. Close to one student per unit. Now you can see there that with 12,100 students are residing in over 40,000 multifamily units. That yield is right now sitting at around 0.30. So that's down a little bit as well. So our yields are down a little bit. Now there's a couple reasons for that. One thing is that when you're building, and some of that product that's being built that's multifamily, on the east side is not really family oriented. It's more of a lifestyle choice. So they're going to have real low yields. So it's not necessarily that students are moving out. It's just that they're not moving into the new product. You can see our geocode. This is our geocode from the last 4 or 5 years. One thing I just wanted to note here, you can see that in 16-17, the yield was 0.322 in multifamily. That dropped to 0.30 last year, and if you recall, we had a significant drop in enrollment. This year, that remained a little more flat. It just stayed kind of steady, and your single-family enrollment yield has declined slightly again this year. And again, it's when you're building 1,000 homes but only yielding 0.3. You've got to be a little bit cognizant of some of those changes. And this is a newcomer leaver chart. We've talked about this before. This is just us trying to get an idea of kids that are coming and going. So a newcomer is a student who's Student ID we had in the system we didn't have last year, and it's in the system this year. And a lever is simply a student ID that was in last year and not in this year. So we just kind of get the comers and goers. And you can see that it was a pretty sharp, it's almost a 700 student swing, where last year your net change was almost 400 less students. This year that number is over 300 new students. So we do think there's been a little bit of a turn there of students. So with that, this is our enrollment forecast for this year. We think that you're going to see a decline of about 500 students going into 18-19. Our 2018-19 forecast this year was within, I think we were within about 130 students overall. I think you guys still came just, it's, we're still seeing a low trend at elementary school, a little bit lower than we expected. Kindergarten enrollment has declined. But we think that next year you're probably about almost 500 students again. And that's with we saw in 2014, we saw a little bit of a birth rate jump. So we're increasing your kindergarten next year based on that cohort analysis. We're going to get more birth data, if you will, in the coming months. In the fourth quarter, we could tweak that a little bit if we think that things are going to be a little bit harder to kind of keep an eye on. It's just the challenge is you've got 800 student difference between your ex-team 12th grade and your first grade class. So you're losing 800 students before we even start. And so if 1,000 homes generates 300 students, you can see the net difference there is about 500 students. So that's one of our challenges. We've separated the district into each attendance zone for you here, and I won't spend too much time, but the Flower Mound High School zone represents about 15% of the development. And you can see here that our enrollment projections for the Flower Mound zone, you see a little bit of a decline in enrollment in this zone, just like we will anywhere else. If you look at the capacities, Blue Bonnets are the one that looks like there appears to be a challenge in this vertical zone. Lewisville, the Lewisville zone, where we see 10 to 15% of the development as well, and you can see here that. This is pretty strong. This is where the new elementary school will open or is being rebuilt. And I know we're working with the district on some of those plans. So that's been a project. If we go to the Marcus zone, 172 closings, over 300 vacant developed lots still. So you can see some big green blobs, if you will, there in the Marcus zone. But if you look at the numbers and the schools there aren't any that jump out at you as a capacity concern necessarily in this zone. And in the Hebron zone, again, now they've got 50% of your development. So now we've jumped over to the east side, and you can see where strong development is. You see the big green stuff there in Peters Colony. And keep in mind the stuff in the south, that realm area is really, it's the Kamey zone that's on the south side of 121 there. So when you look at these projections, you see the challenges there at Kamey, a little bit at Independence, and I know that somewhere down the road we'll have another elementary school out that direction as well. And finally, the colony zone, about 7 to 10% of your current developments in the colony zone, and this is where again Kamey's at. That's where we're showing some strong growth in Kamey. There's if you look across the road from Kamey, down that boundary, that Morningside zone, there's some room there, and so there will be opportunities, I think, going forward. So again, the unemployment rate in Denton County is at 3.5%. So we're basically at full employment. We're on pace to start and close over 1,100 homes in Lewisville ISD. Indian Creek and the Tom Hicks zones account for 27% of all the closings. So that's a fourth of your closings. Kamey and Independence account for nearly 30% of your future lots. So you see where stuff is staying. You see the trend there. We're projected to close between 750 and 1,400 homes over the next 4 to 5 years. We're going to kind of watch that housing market, and you're going to be right around that 50,000 student mark. It just looks like you've hit that. 50,000 seems to be, we work with 2 or 3 other districts, in a state that are right. You hit that 50,000 mark, and there can be some 1% swing in any given year. I know that's pretty fast. I'm always up for questions.
Thank you, Rocky. Is there any questions? Rosnick?
I believe it is slide 17, when you talked about the leavers in our district. And I know that a lot of those leavers are our seniors who we are sending off to the world to do bigger and better things. Is there a way to take them out?
We actually have.
Okay, so that does not include our seniors.
I should have made that a little clearer.
Okay.
Yes. A leaver is a student ID that was in the system last year, is not in it this year, and they were not 12th graders.
Okay.
And we do the same thing with newcomer. A newcomer is a student ID we didn't have this year. We have this, but we do have it. We didn't have it last year. We have it this year, and they're not a kindergarten student because those are all considered kind of newcomers. So we kind of pull out the
Okay, so that is pulled out. All right, thank you.
Pulled out. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation.
All right, thanks.
Dr. Bonner, 2019-2020 academic calendar.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cox. Dr. Rogers, board members, I'm pleased tonight to share with you some follow-up information on our academic calendar committee and the work that's been done there. As you'll remember in September when we sought some guidance from you all on various particulars about that process, we were planning our meetings with 30 members of the committee. That's comprised of students and parents and teachers and administrators. We met subsequent to that 4 times, and you note that in October on the 3rd, 10th, 17th, and 24th, weekly meetings. And we looked at the various things that you all pointed out that are bulleted in the item, maintaining current school holidays, constructing a calendar with an early start date, excuse me, look at midweek beginning to school, which seemed to be a popular thing this year, 5-day Thanksgiving break, 2 weeks of winter break, and then looking at how we schedule spring break in March. The committee certainly did that. We had that September workshop. On the 20th, we went to the Principal Advisory Committee with Dr. Rogers and got some input from them on what they would like to see in the calendar options. And then we met with the district community leadership team on the 27th of September. We convened our meetings. We have a meeting tomorrow with the District Council PTAs to share with them the 2 options that are in the materials tonight. The next part of the item addresses the requisite 75,600 minutes and then the holidays, which are traditionally in the schedule, as well as where we landed on days for this year and proposed for next year, and that's 176 regular and early release days, 8 professional learning days, 3 teacher work days, and 2 bad weather days, which are required by the state. You put all that in the hopper, and we came up with 2 options, which are attached. And after our meeting tonight, any input you give us, we'll work with communications to propose a survey for the community as we've traditionally done, which will go out on the 15th of November, and we'll close that on the 30th of November in anticipation of the December 3rd workshop, and then later on the December 10th action item back to you all. The administrative consideration, I won't go over all that because we've talked through that earlier. I will turn your attention for a moment to the summary of school calendars, which is a side-by-side, and it notes the regular school days, 172. It notes the early release days, 4 in both calendars, 2 employee trade days in November during the week of Thanksgiving, as we have done in the past, 6 professional learning days before and during the school year, 3 teacher work days, and 2 bad weather days. And that gets to 75,780 minutes, which is 180 minutes over the 75,600 mark that the state requires. And you'll see the last item in there, that equals 187 teacher calendar days, which is what our contract calls for. On the side-by-side on the options, last year when we presented this, we wanted to make sure that we had meaningful change in any calendars. And I want to present to you tonight that we did our dead level best. When you look at the calendar and you have 180 or so days to play with in the calendar, and we start narrowing the filter down, there's not a lot of discretion there, if I can just be totally honest with you. And so we're bringing the 2 items to you tonight, which are very similar but do have some significant changes or some significant differences, I suppose I should say. One of those is how teacher work days are structured. In the first calendar, there are 2 in August and then 1 at the end of the year, which is pretty much what we've done the last several years. The other proposal we have is 1 in August, 1 in January to begin the second semester, and then 1 at the close of the year to close out the school year. First day of school is another change or another difference between the two. And then the last difference is the spring break holiday placement. One is the 9th through the 13th, and the other is the 16th through the 20th. You can see at the end of that bit, we have a delineation of when the days are. If you'll look at the semesters in both of them, the days are balanced. The first semester in the first calendar has 86 days in the first semester and 90 in the second. And the second calendar has 87 days and 89 in the second, so pretty evenly spread there. And then we just have the calendar graphic, and you can see where the days are plotted out on option 1 and also option 2. And if I can turn your attention to one quick item on both calendars, TEA established STAR testing window this year, the last 2 weeks of the school year. And so Dr. Brandewie, who was a participant in the calendar committee, put out an item which we're proposing that high school STAR and AP testing be the week of May 11th through the 15th, and then we'll conduct STAR tests, finals would be the 18th through the 21st, and STAR and AP would be May 11th through the 15th at high school. Middle school, STAR would be the last week of the year, and finals would be May the 11th through the 15th. And that's within the defined window that TEA has provided to us. And if you have too many questions about that, I've got Dr. Fitzhugh here, because I just expressed the level of expertise I know about that. Any questions or anything further I can share with you about the process?
Well, that's disheartening about the test.
We looked at it a couple different ways. We obviously knew we needed to conform to it, but as Dr. Rogers and I were visiting a little bit about it this morning, it does, being placed at the end of the year, it does give campus teachers and kids a chance to get further along into the end of the curriculum. So,
okay, does anyone have any questions? I think it boils down to spring break.
Yes, ma'am.
When you want to take it, Ms. Hassett.
I think it's what stuck out to me was more than spring break. I think it is spring break. It's the 13th or 14th start date, and I know a lot of people like the teachers like the midweek start date, which leans towards option 1. But I would just offer up that I think it's material that the 42 days versus 47 switch in calendar 1 versus calendar 2 for the last semester being 42 days or 47. Is there some instructional benefit to the last semester being 42 or 47?
That's a great question, Mr. Miller. I would tell you normally our calendars usually have more days in the spring semester because some of those days are taken up giving tests. And so, if you have it exactly the same and yet you spend 5 days of testing in the spring, then you're really losing instruction for semester type classes in the spring. So
yeah, okay, good. So I guess the question would be, I think about if I was a student, if I'm making it to the last 9 weeks, right? Okay, I only have 42 days of instruction versus 47. Is there something material there that's meaningful? Because that's the difference between the two calendars. That's there's 3 things that jump out of the calendars: start date, spring break, and that the last 9 weeks is 42 or 47.
And the last 9 weeks is influenced by where you place spring break.
Yeah.
Right. That's the 42, 47 right there. So, and that is something that in either of the calendars at the board's discretion, that could be moved back and forth.
And the other difference is the placement of the work days. So that is another difference.
Ms. Hassett?
First of all, have you gotten any feedback from the teachers to see if they prefer the professional work day in August versus February, or I think it's February? January? Whatever. Separating? Have you any?
Yes, ma'am. There were, oh gosh, 8 or 9 or 10 teachers on the 8 or 9 teachers on the committee itself. We've not taken it to anyone outside the groups that I listed earlier, though.
Did they have a preference themselves?
They came up with both calendars. I can't really, go much further than that.
I'd be very interested in what the teachers overall, I know you can't tell me exactly, but
Yeah.
just whether they like the spreading them out or not. Second, I'm disappointed in myself to not know that in 2020 they've changed the start. Is this all tests, all STAR tests, including elementary writing and everything? Is it within the 2-week window of the last 2 weeks of school?
It's secondary.
Secondary.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you come to the mic, please?
Sorry, Dr. Fisher.
So it appears right now what's proposed. It could change at any discretion. They change the calendar sometime. But right now what's proposed is that 3rd and 4th grade math would be that May 18th. May 19th, May 20th, May 21st, we would have some elementary and middle school testing in 1920.
So we could
About
have
the writing.
The writing would be earlier on.
April?
The writing they administer, hold on, I just got to scroll up. Writing is proposed for April 14th.
in 4th and 7th both, or just?
Yes, 4th and 7th. The EOC writing would be
Which
April
one in
16th
English?
and April 14th. The other EOCs and all the other just standard bubble tests are at the end of the year.
So in middle school, they'd be taking an EOC on the 24th on the last day of school?
Yes. 8th grade, well, I don't have the calendar proposal, so I don't know what the last day of school is on your calendar.
On one of the, no, both of them?
May 21st is the 8th grade social studies test on the current TEA proposed calendar.
21st.
May 21st.
And did they give you a reason as to why? Are they actually listening that they're pushing it back so we can have further instruction?
It was pushed back because we were asked to give it closer towards the end of the year a couple of years ago. This is back another week, and I don't know the reasoning behind. We can call and ask.
I'd just be very interested if they're trying to accommodate us so that we can have further instruction, so that our kids have all of the information and knowledge. Of course, it creates an even more post-mortem that when will we get the results if it's the very last week of
Supposed
school?
to get results by June 19th.
Supposed to.
Well, I mean, that's when we might get something a couple of days earlier, but that's the official when ETS has to give us results.
Further in the summer.
Well, yes.
Dr. Fitzhugh, if they decide to change the test dates, when would they do that? Like whenever they want?
Yes, sometimes at the beginning of the next school year, we get an updated calendar. Some things have moved.
Because they had
We've
done
had
that.
to change our calendar in the past because they've moved
I know
the
we've
writing
changed
test.
our calendar in the past, so.
I don't sit on those committees, so I don't know what goes through and what conversations occur that lead to the changes, but we do get updated calendars throughout.
I would just ask that when we put these out, knowing that this is communicated now, when we're voting on these calendars, that this isn't a surprise to our community at the beginning of next year if they change those dates, and we've done this once before, and this creates havoc for our community, for our teachers, and for us as a district. I mean, we have employees who make plans, and then when we have to change a calendar, we have to make accommodations. And so if we have to do that, I want to know that up front this has been disclosed.
One thing we did last year, which we'll absolutely do this year, we put the survey out, and then there was an explanatory portion underneath, and so that'd be a great place to do that. So we'll write something up and include that.
Having 2 weeks of testing, AP testing and then EOC testing, that's a lot of
We've had that for the last few years. That's how those 2 weeks, they've just existed a little bit
stacked.
earlier.
It's just further, closer. Okay, good. That makes me feel a little bit better.
Mr. Miller?
I'm just curious, did we actually get to where we published the calendar and made a change, or are we talking about a couple years ago during the DOI discussions where we held off on publishing the calendar? We actually, we published it and made a change. Right, I know it's because TA, so one time. Okay.
Yes,
So,
my children
under this
enjoyed the
commissioner or
two-week
the previous
vacation.
commissioner? Well, I'm just curious about practice from the commissioner, the previous
I feel
commissioner.
like it was
Okay.
previous, but
Okay. But I do agree with Ms. Sells that if we publish anything or go to a vote for, do a survey, that there's a disclaimer on it, given the conditions that Dr. Fitzhugh just explained, that, mitigates our exposure with the community, that, changes are subject to, or change or lack thereof are subject to direction from the TEA.
my hope would be there wouldn't be any huge changes, but our current school year calendar, the 18-19 testing calendar, was updated this August. And that was well after we'd set a calendar. I can't tell you exactly what changes happened, but they do make changes over the summer as things come in. They just decide to change things.
Speaking real generally to the point, it probably is not a bad practice to put a disclaimer at the bottom of the calendar. So we can do that as well.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Bonner. All right, we're moving into discussion items, the monthly financial report, including the bond. Oh, we can? Okay. Well, I'm going to take a point of privilege then, if the board is okay. I know many of these people have been waiting to hear agenda items 4 and 5, so I'm going to move those action items up now above the discussion items. Okay, so agenda item number 4. Come back. Consider approval of boundary adjustments for the retirement of Hedrick Elementary School. Dr. Coburn.
Oh man, I'm scrolling through my board book here as fast as I can. We've reached that moment. This is the end of our 3-touch cycle on this. We had a series of our public meetings to make sure that we could answer questions, get any feedback as we presented what the options were and what they would mean to the community. We certainly had a lot of questions. We also got a lot of feedback that people were appreciative of the process and of the opportunity to understand how we got to the point that we got to. We are recommending no changes in that map for consideration, and again, we are recommending that take effect for next school year.
Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Lasan?
I don't have a question. I just have more of a comment. I know that there's been a lot of angst, in the community about the changes for Hedrick and stuff, but I'm looking out in the audience out there, and I'm seeing all these teachers, and I wasn't exactly sure what they were doing, but then I see pom-poms going up there, and so I'm kind of thinking that they are excited about taking in these Hedrick kids, and so I hope that if there are any people who are scared or anxious or whatever about their kids, about the changes, that you'll have confidence. If anything, in this, this looks like your whole faculty out there pretty much. So it's not okay. Well, it's a very healthy audience out there. So I hope that, I know it's always scary to change schools and things, but anyway, I hope that anyone who is worried about it will have confidence in this wonderful group of teachers, and y'all will be probably getting some more teachers to help you out. So that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Lasan. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Timish?
I move to approve the Hedrick boundary adjustment consideration as presented by administration.
There's a motion by Ms. Timish. Do we have a second? Ms. Prosnick? All in favor? That's 7-0. Motion carries. Congratulations. And thank you for being here and showing your enthusiasm and excitement. It's going to be a very, very exciting times for the district. Okay, item number 5, consider approval of boundary adjustments for the construction of the elementary school on Mill Street. Dr. Coburn.
Goodbye, everybody. So we're at the same thing here. We've come to the end. We had our meetings with our communities, Lewisville Central and College Street Elementaries, to discuss the process, answer any questions that they might have. Again, a lot of appreciation about what the process was, and certainly some very pointed questions. Many of them are about my own children and my own family, and just making sure that they're going to be taken care of, which is a great question. To your point earlier, Ms. Lasan, as you talked about these wonderful staff members at all of these schools taking care of these kids, one of the things that we discussed in all of those meetings was that curriculum, what you saw tonight with the language arts presentation, you get that at every single school, every single day in Lewisville ISD, and I think being able to bring that to the community helped a great deal. As we've continued to look at this, we recommend no changes to the map we brought you for discussion last month.
Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Does anyone have any questions? Someone like to make a motion?
Well, I move to approve the boundary adjustment consideration for the new elementary school on Mill Street as presented by administration.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. That's a motion by Ms. Prosnick. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Hassett. All in favor? 7-0, motion carries. Very exciting. Okay, now back to discussion items. Mr. Ball, monthly financial report.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. I just knew those pom-poms were about the financial statements. This is the report for the 1 month ended September 30th, and honestly, when you take the way school district financial statements are done, the first month is a little bit uneventful, if you will, and so but that is what we have to present tonight. The 1 month ended September 30th, and I think a takeaway from that is it takes about somewhere just north of $40 million per month to operate the general fund, and also attached to this report are the grant reports, which are really just showing the initial, for the most part, the initial grant award for the year, and then you have the bond reports and the monthly investment report, and I'd certainly be happy to address any questions the board might have about any of these.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ball? Okay. Consider revision to the FDB local and grandfather clause. Dr. Coburn.
Thank you, Mrs. Cox. Members of the board, Dr. Rogers, this is the second look at the language that would exist as we talked about the grandfathering back in September. As we wrote this board item, we said that we would get some language from TASB that would be probably better than the language that we came up with. Turns out it's pretty similar. We actually just got it, but not in time to include in this board book. So what you'll see as an action item next month would be very similar to what you have in front of you now. Really what we wanted to make sure is that this captures what it is that we had discussed in September and meets with the board's desires there to make sure that students entering 4th and 5th grade would have that grandfathering guarantee, as would their siblings, so that we don't break families up.
Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, boundary considerations, Broadwood Elementary and Flower Mound Elementary. Dr. Coburn.
Okay, continuing on, this is the same process we're proposing that we just brought forward to conclusion on the retirement of Hedrick and the elementary on Mill Street is what we have here. This is another one of the projects we discussed in September. We've proposed a similar communication plan. We are bringing a recommendation forward to you for discussion tonight. We've got some dates set up, some opportunities as soon as we get those finalized to make sure the community has an opportunity to hear a similar type of presentation, have their voices heard, get their questions answered regarding this boundary plan. If you'll take a look at the map, you'll see there's actually one very small change that we made from what we talked to you about in December that just takes that the boundary up there in the northwest part of the district and moves it not quite as far out as it had been in the original. And I'll tell you, I went and took a drive, and we ended up having neighbors the way we had written it. We had 2 neighbors that lived on the same street that were at 2 different schools. And so we made a very small little adjustment. It affected, I think, 9 students total. What this would do is basically flip the enrollments at Broadwood and Flower Mound. Not quite, especially when you think about people that will take advantage of a grandfathering. But as you saw from Rocky, who didn't stick around, I guess he didn't. But the Bradford Park subdivision, we're going to have some growth at Flower Mound, and so what we've done here and what we're proposing is to be able to be prepared for some of that growth by providing that space at Flower Mound.
Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Does anyone have any questions? I just have a quick question. I'd like to know how this information is going to be submitted to parents and families.
So we've got our Boundaries website already up and running, and we've got the space ready to go ahead and make sure that this is posted there. We've got meeting dates queued up. I think Ms. Riggles already had some contact with some of you about your availability to attend some of those meetings. And we would have one at each of these 4 schools, each of the 2 schools in this item, and then the next item that we have as well, to make sure people have an opportunity to interact. And I've already been working with the principals on making sure they get the word out in those communities.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure that school is going to be sending out information as well. Thank you so much. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I think we have got some questions about this map. You want to go ahead?
I just wanted to make sure that Imperial, Samuel, and I don't know if that's Lippens. Do we have students on those streets that will be split? Or is that where you're talking about?
No, I think what you may be, are you referring to the red line?
Yeah.
So the red line is actually the boundary as it currently exists, and
I
that's
got
one of
it.
those areas where the Templeton map was incorrect.
So you
but-
corrected that.
Yeah, we
Okay.
felt like it was appropriate to leave that in there just for the sake of transparency for you to see. So the map actually does correct that.
Okay.
So, the pink is Flower Mound. Okay, so you're going to split Double Oak. So yeah, the split's Double Oak. So just so you know, that means that Double Oak kids would go to one of 3 elementary schools, depending on where you live. One is Denton ISD, and 2 ours. This is not going to be real popular. Expect some input on it. So.
Any other questions? All right, Dr. Coburn, considerations for future Southwest growth, Bluebonnet Elementary and Old Settlers.
Okay, and again, this is the last of the projects that we discussed back in September. And again, it's timely with Rocky's presentation earlier. We talked about villas at Southgate and those 500 future lots at Bluebonnet and the need, if you go back and look at the projection there, we're going to get too big pretty quick at Bluebonnet if we don't provide some relief. The map that we're bringing to you for discussion is the one that uses 2499 as sort of a natural boundary there. It also is the one that, in the early stages, impacts the fewest number of people because you're impacting people that are not yet there for the most part. So you're preparing for the growth by making that adjustment now. There would be some affected families, but again, grandfathering, again, an opportunity to make sure that the communities at Bluebonnet and Old Settlers have an opportunity to understand how we came to where we are tonight, for them to provide any feedback that they may have and ask any questions that they may have, and we would have that ready to go. And those meetings are all set prior to the December board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Hassett?
I keep waffling back and forth. I really like the idea of the 2499 demarcation line, but then I also keep thinking of traffic congestion within the corridor that would have to be traveled to get to Old Settlers. Do we have any traffic studies or anything that would give us any indication as to how long parents would drive if they are driving their children, or buses would take to get from that Southgate area? That's yet to be determined at the last part before you get to Grapevine, all the way up to Old Settlers. I'm just curious. I do like the natural boundary that it creates, but it can be a cluster during morning rush hour, trying to be a salmon going back upward. Just wondering.
Yeah. regarding a specific traffic study, no, other than driving. But right now we're driving and we don't have everybody there yet. So we understand that that volume only stands to increase. The other, in looking at this option, one of the things that really is the reason we decided to recommend this one was that it provides a little bit more space for that growth. If the growth exceeds and some of those yields that we talked about exceed what we had, what we're looking at and what we've been looking at, if they go back up to those levels that we had a few years ago, this is the option that provides us enough of a buffer not to have to come back to you 3, 4, 5 years down the road and say, would you like to put some portables in, or would you like to readdress a boundary? And I think that's probably more than anything, because certainly in terms of just mileage, as opposed to using some of the other things that we had discussed, maybe a little bit longer. We also do not believe at this time that much of what happens in that very far, when 2499 takes that bend and kind of goes east-west, and you have that little small area that's due south before you leave our district boundary, we believe that that's going to be business development and not residential right there. So it'll at least jog a little bit farther over to the west before we see people.
The Southgate will have some residential. It'll be one of the mix, but it's, I think, also possibly going to be apartments, multifamily, which will also be low yield, but still possibly some. I think that was what I remember.
That's correct, yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Okay, we're moving into action items. Consider approval of the data center storage refresh cooperative contract. Mr. Colbeck.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This is a topic that the board has heard a couple times, one in August and again during the work session in November. This is a project that was planned out as part of the 2017 bond program. It's to replace our current storage solution here in our data center. As I shared last week, the systems that we're currently using, we have over 400 virtual servers running on those servers, and they're over 6 years old and they need to be replaced. I also pointed out that the storage for this is specific for the storage that we have currently, so if we have additional needs for security camera storage, that doesn't meet that need. Also, as the Josie Lane Elementary School is built, there will be a secondary data center built. That storage is not included in this as well. This is a project that I shared that we're going to hopefully be able to get the equipment in quickly and that we can actually get it installed during the winter break. Also, there's a new development, I guess, since the last discussion on this. One of the items that we shared is that current contract was going to expire, and DIR was in the process of trying to renew that. What ended up happening is that the contract actually ended up with a 30-day extension. So this particular action item is good, or the contract that this bid came in under is good till December 10th. So we're actually in good shape with this right now, and it gives us the ability to move forward with the recommended vendor and this procurement. So with that, our recommendation is that the board approve the data center storage refresh with Technologent for the amount of $1,992,534.
Thank you, Mr. Colbeck. Does anyone have any questions? Someone like to make a motion?
Make the motion. I move to approve the anticipated expenditures from 2017 bond funds in the amount of $1,992,534 for the data center storage refresh project through an eligible awarded cooperative contract with Technologent as recommended by administration.
Thank you, Ms. Sells. That's a motion by Ms. Sells. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Timish. All in favor? That's 7-0. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Action item. Consider approval of guaranteed maximum price for 2018 security vestibule renovations included in the 2017 bond. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. This item also was discussed in the work session last week, and the recommendation is that that this project be awarded, that the guaranteed maximum price on this project be approved from Jackson Construction Company in the amount of $9,986,275, and certainly be happy to address any questions the board may have on this.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Does anyone have any questions? Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Lasan?
I move to approve the guaranteed maximum price of $9,986,275 for the 2018 security vestibule renovations by Jackson Construction, and that the superintendent, chief financial officer, or executive director of procurement and contracts be authorized to sign any documents to implement this action as recommended by administration.
Thank you, Ms. Lasan. Do we have a second? Ms. Hassett? We have a motion by Ms. Lasan, a second by Ms. Hassett. All in favor? That's 7-0. Motion carries. Consider assigning board-approved architect firm to June 2018 storm damage repair projects. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. This item relates to the hailstorm and windstorm damage that we experienced on June the 6th of 2018. As we also discussed this one in the work session, we have not yet received the final adjudication of the claim, and so we need the architect assigned to assist us as we work through the design development of this project, so that as soon as we do get the insurance part of it settled, we'll be prepared to move forward with a design recommendation leading to a proposal to the board to assign a guaranteed maximum price once we have those specs developed and so forth. But we need to get the architect on board, even though we don't necessarily know what the total damage is at this point. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Does anyone have any questions? Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Timish?
I move to approve the architect selection of Stantec for the June 6 storm damage repair projects and the expenditures associated with their design fees, and that the superintendent, chief financial officer, or executive director of procurement and contracts be authorized to sign any documents to implement this action as recommended by administration.
Thank you, Ms. Timish. That's a motion by Ms. Timish. Is that a second, Ms. Prosnick? Second by Ms. Prosnick. All in favor? That's 7-0. Motion carries. Consent agenda items. Is there any items that need to be pulled? No? Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda items as recommended by the administration.
Thank you, Ms. Hassett. That's a motion by Ms. Hassett. We have a second by Ms. Timish. All in favor? That's 7-0. Motion carries. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to consider a Level 3 student discipline appeal. If at any time the board is to hear a matter involving a student, the matter must be heard in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 5510821. We will therefore be moved into closed session at this time to hear the Level 3 student discipline appeal. The time is now 9:11. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Okay, we are back on record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is now 10:37. Does any board member have a motion regarding the student discipline appeal?
Ms. Cox, I move to uphold the Level 2 student discipline decision of the administration for the Level 3 student discipline appeal hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Timish. That's a motion by Ms. Timish. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Hassett. All in favor? That's 7-0. Motion carries. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 10:38.
All right. Let's go home.
Go home, beat the crap out of them.